Well, hello out there. Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Brew Club. I'm Mike Pittman, and joining us as usual, our resident homebrewing expert, it's Ken Reddy from Brewery Lane in Mount Pearl. And tonight, Ken, we've got a keg of white wine.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. Tonight we're going to make some sparkling wine or champagne.
Sparkling wine or champagne or...
Well,
sparkling wine or champagne.
Sparkling wine.
What, sparkling wine?
Yes,
okay,
it's a carbonated wine we're going to make.
A lot of people call it champagne, though.
Yeah, well, champagne, really the only true champagne can be made in Champagne, France. So we're going to make a sparkling wine that's similar to a champagne.
Okay, so it's not made in Champagne, France. Because it's made in St. John's, Newfoundland, it's sparkling wine.
That's right, exactly.
If we were in Champagne, France, we'd be making champagne.
Yes. And the method we're going to use is what we call a country champagne method. It's not the true champagne method, but it will give you a fairly decent sparkling wine that you can put away and probably use for the millennium, to bring in the millennium.
So you put it away for a long time, and January 1st or December 31st next year, I guess, or 1999, you can pull this stuff out and
That's
say,
right, yep.
I made this stuff.
That's
when
right.
You're standing down, perhaps, on the waterfront. Okay.
That's right.
Fabulous. So what do we have here? We have, this is just a regular white wine?
This is just a regular white wine kit, Mike. It's a kit that our producer, Gordon, put down a couple of weeks ago. It's Chablis, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. What we've done, we've fermented it. We haven't, even though it's very clear, we haven't used any finings or anything in it. No stabilizers, which you can't use.
Which is to say, our producer did a very good job in making his batch of white wine.
That's right, exactly.
But perhaps did it a little bit too well for our purposes, didn't he?
Because it's fairly clear, but we're going to add some champagne yeast to it anyway, a little later in the show.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be as clear as this before you bottle it, because it has the carbonate in the bottles. It's going to be a little cloudy. We're going to have to add a simple syrup solution or a sugar solution to it in order for it to carbonate in the bottles.
So a white wine that is finished fermenting, basically we're going to start it fermenting again.
Exactly,
to make the champagne.
That's right. We have to start it fermenting again in order to produce CO2 to carbonate the wine.
So what's the first step? What would we want to be doing with this?
Well, first of all, if you're planning on making champagne, you can use either a red or a rosé or a white wine kit. I mean, if you're making it at home, you can even use a red.
Right.
It's entirely up to yourself. You know, that's one thing, you've got control over what you're making, so you can make whatever style you like. We prefer to use a white one here. Just use a regular white wine kit, or you can use a champagne kit, Mike, which is, I'll show you this one here.
Do you have here?
Yep. That's a sparkling champagne kit.
Sparkling champagne type wine. Why does it say type wine?
Well, again, it's a sparkling champagne type wine. It's not a true champagne, because true champagne can only be made in Champagne, France.
Okay, and as they probably saw when we showed that can, this is $36 for the can.
Yes, exactly.
So,
yep.
Is this any different than what I would get out of the Village Vintner box that I buy? Well, is any particular reason it's in a can versus?
No, not necessarily. I mean, that's just a kit that Wine Master makes. It's one of the many champagne kits around the market. You don't have to use that. Like I say, you can use your regular Village Vintner wine kit if you want to. Okay. The only difference in making these as opposed to making a regular white wine is that you don't add your finings or stabilizers.
Right.
You transfer them to the bottles, add a simple syrup solution to them, some yeast to them, and let them ferment in the bottles.
Sort of like when you bottle your beer, when you add the sugar before you bottle your beer, isn't it?
Exactly.
We're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to get a carbonated wine, basically, or sparkling wine.
That's right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and there's you can also make a sparkling wine by artificially carbonating it if you have access to the proper equipment, like kegging system we used on a show in one of the previous shows for kegging beer. You can also make a sparkling wine with those.
Okay, well let's get started. I guess the first thing we want to do is rack it off.
Yeah, first thing we're going to do, Mike, is rack it off into our primary fermenter, so we can add our solution to it, our simple syrup solution to it.
Okay.
Okay, we'll just get this going here. Like so. Just needs another little
stroke. A little push, and there it goes.
Okay.
Well on its way.
It's all going. Now, while you're doing that, Mike, I've already have it prepared here, but you need a cup and a quarter of sugar. for 23 liters, which we have here.
Okay.
About a half a cup of water. You want to boil the water, add the sugar to it, bring it to a boil again, and make sure it's fully dissolved. Once it's fully dissolved, you've got it ready to go into your wine.
Okay.
This in turn will help carbonate it in the end. You just gently stir it in. After you've done that, you have to put it into bottles. Now, what we're going to use here are champagne bottles, Mike. They're, as you can see, they're a much heavier bottle.
Okay, heavier glass.
Much heavier glass,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
They have a ridge on the neck here where you can actually attach a wire to them. What we're going to use are a plastic champagne cork.
Okay, bring that in.
Yeah, like that one there.
Plastic champagne cork. You've probably seen that on some commercial bottles. It's not. We can't use the big, the larger, heavy corks that we've seen that would come out of some sparkling wines.
Well, yeah, sure. If you got access to those new corks and you have a way to put them in, by all means, use them. These corks are,
could you use them with a regular
hand corker? No, not those type.
Which is why we're using the plastic.
Yes, exactly. Those are just push in, and then you have a wire cap that goes over them.
Okay.
You just put that cap on them like so, and twist it with the pliers or something like that. Okay. That'll keep the cork in place and keep it from popping out once there's pressure in the bottle.
Okay.
Now, there's a few things we want to tell you about this, Mike. You want to be very careful about making these sparkling wines. Is one, make sure your wine is fully fermented before you add your syrup solution, okay? Because if your wine is not fully fermented, and you also add your extra sugar,
right?
Your wine is going to be overcarbonated, and you can actually end up with exploding bottles.
Exploding bottles.
Yeah. So you want to take a little extra care when you're making champagne. Don't ever use regular wine bottles. The glass is not heavy enough. They're not designed to withstand the pressure.
Right.
Okay.
So make sure you get the heavy, heavier duty,
champagne bottles.
And don't forget that lip on the top.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Now, another alternative, Mike, is these plastic PET bottles. Those are great also for holding pressure.
Really?
Yes, so they'll work fine. Those are 1 liter soft drink bottles. They'll be great for
Well, I guess these are regularly made to hold carbonated beverages.
Exactly.
Anyway, so okay, I'm just thinking in terms of the thickness of the plastic or just having a screw on tap versus something that we're going to take and wire down to the bottle.
You've got to remember,
work just fine as well.
These plastic PET bottles are used for bottling all types of carbonated beverages, which would have no more pressure in them than your champagne would. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the method of champagne we're doing is called a country champagne, Mike. So, what happens when it carbonates and once it's finished fermenting in the bottles and carbonates, you're going to have a little bit of sediment in the bottom of it. Okay.
Right.
What you would have to do in order to pour the champagne is before you serve it, you will probably want to get it in a cool place, preferably for a week or so, so the tartaric acid or tartaric acid would precipitate out of it and form a hard crust over the sediment. So when you
on the bottom.
Yes, exactly. So when you pour the sediment, when you pour the wine, there would be no sediment in it.
Okay.
Another method that you can use, but it's much more difficult. You can use a little plug like this. It's called a vin trap. Okay.
Okay.
What that is, you would need a special rack to hold your bottle in. You would put the vin trap in. Okay. Like so. And you would need a special rack to hold the bottle in, and you would call us riddle the bottle. Turn the bottle every few days, okay?
Okay.
And keep turning it till all the sediment is down into this tip here.
Right.
Okay? You would leave the bottle inverted then, okay?
Right.
And then you would, what you would do, you would take the tip here and twist it off with the sediment in it, open the bottle.
Really?
Okay? And then you would quickly have to put the regular
champagne cork in it.
Back into the bottle. Now, what you would do, you would chill again. You would have to chill the bottle down as much as you possibly could before you put these.
When you say chill it down as much as you can, you put it in a freezer?
Yeah, well, get it in the fridge and try to get the temperature down as cold as possible. The thing about it is a cold beverage will hold CO2 much better than a warm beverage.
Okay.
So by chilling it down, you lose a lot of the CO2.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we're still waiting for our white wine to be transferred to the primary fermenter. Why don't we take a short break?
Sure.
And when we come back, we'll finish bottling our wines. We're gonna use some labels, some nice labels, and I don't know what you call them, the little
Champagne foil.
champagne foils that we're going to put on the bottles. And we'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back to the Brew Club, and we're right in the middle of making our champagne. We've got our white wine back in our primary fermenter, and you've been preparing some of the yeast there.
That's right, Mike.
What's in the mug?
We have a simple syrup solution. It's 180 grams or a cup and a quarter of corn sugar and just about 3/4 of a cup of hot water. So we just prepared that. It's called a simple syrup solution. We'll have to add that to the wine now and gently stir it in. That will help us give us our carbonated wine.
Okay.
So
Now, this sugar solution isn't going to make the wine any sweeter, is it?
no, it won't.
So
Mike.
we're going to end up with sort of a dry tasting champagne.
This
are we
is
not?
going to be a dry champagne. But if you wanted to make a a sweeter champagne, you can use a non-fermentable sugar. One that is used quite often, Mike, is lactose. It's a lactose, yes.
Okay.
It's a milk sugar. It's not fermented by normal means, i.e. beer yeast or wine yeast.
Okay.
So it works quite well to sweeten these champagnes. And all you would have to do is, at this stage here, if you wanted to make a sweeter champagne, is just add some of the lactose to it and get it to the taste you want it.
Okay.
You would add it obviously before you add your simple syrup solution.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
So that's about it. So as you can see, Mike, this is quite simple to do. You just add your sugar syrup solution, stir it in, and away to go. And we've prepared some yeast here. This is a champagne strain yeast. We're going to add that to it now. This is going to turn our wine a little cloudy, but it's really nothing to worry about because it's going to turn cloudy anyway once it starts fermenting in the champagne bottles.
Right.
Okay? So we just pour that in. And again, it's a good idea to prepare this ahead of time.
Okay.
And get that all in there if we can. Okay. And we can give this a little stir to disperse it.
Okay. It does look like it's getting cloudy, but it is dispersing quite nicely in there.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So that's about it, Mike, there for that. And that's all ready to go now. So all we have to do is get it into our champagne bottles.
Okay.
And we can start getting our...
we'll start filling them. Will we need the bottle filler for this?
Yes, we'll need our bottle filler.
Okay.
Okay. Get that on there. Maybe a bit tight at times. Okay. You got it?
Okay.
Now you want to put that into the bottle, Mike, and get the valve open there so we can start...
Done. I'll just get down behind here. Okay. Now this is filling up quite nice. So we're going to fill up about a dozen of these, I guess, and we'll get some labels on them. Is that right?
Yeah, we got some labels there, Mike, and we got some champagne foils, and we're going to make them look real nice.
Now, I've almost got this first one up to the top. How far?
Well, you want to leave about 1.5 to 2 inches from the top of the bottle, Mike.
That much?
Yeah.
So
yeah, just a little more. You got to allow
right
for the
there?
displacement of your bottle filler. That's pretty good.
there?
Yep. Sure.
Okay. And we'll go right on to the next one. Now this one's going to be a little bit tougher because this is a really dark glass, but you can see
Yeah.
here we've got it about an inch. Well, like you say, about 1.5 inches.
About 1.5 inches.
the
That's what
top.
you need there, Mike, from the top of your bottles. That'll give you room to get your champagne corks in there and whatnot. Okay.
Okay. So how is this different? We were talking at the beginning of the show about how we're actually making sparkling wine, or if you want to, let's call it St. John's champagne, shall we?
Okay, that sounds good.
We're making St. John's champagne, and but there's a lot more difference between just the fact that it's made in the Champagne region of France. There is a specific method, I guess, to
Yeah, actually
to champagne versus what we're doing here.
The method that is used was, I guess, originated by Dom Perignon. He was a monk, and he was the first guy to really Actually, a lot of these methods are still used today in making champagne with very little changes. What they do to make a champagne in France, Mike, is that they fill the bottles with your champagne. Once fill the bottles with the wine, then they put the corks in, and they would take the bottle and riddle it. What they call riddle it, they would put it in a rack that would have the tip of the bottle down, and they would keep turning and turning the bottle, and until all the sediment was in the bottom of the bottle. Then they would make up a solution of brine or salt, and get it and freeze it. It would be quite slushy. They would then put the bottle, the inverted bottle, the neck of it, just the neck of it, into the brine solution.
Right.
And they would wait until the sediment freezes in a plug, because all the sediment is in the neck of the bottle then. They would then what's called degorge, or they would take the cork out. The sediment plug would pop out very quickly.
Yep.
At that time, if they were going to sweeten the champagne some more, they would use a brandy and simple syrup solution to sweeten the champagne a little and fortify it.
Oh, they would actually add brandy to it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Then they put the plug back into it again, champagne plug back into it again, put the wire on it, and finish it. So that's generally how it was done. And it's still done. As a matter of fact, it's still done that way today. So.
Really?
So it's they also.
So it is quite different than what we're doing.
Yeah. They
how
also
we're making
use,
our champagne. Okay.
For cheaper champagnes, they use a fermentation tank where they would actually ferment the champagne in a tank. It would be a closed fermenter. The gas cannot escape. Then they would use a counter pressure bottling system to put the fermented champagne into the bottles. So that's just another method of doing it.
Okay. Now, of course, if you're making champagne or sparkling wine, you want to take, this is probably the perfect product, homemade product, that you'd want to take some extra care in, which is why we're going to show the folks at home how properly put the labels on. We've got the proper corks and things like that.
That's right.
Make it look nice for whatever special occasion
Exactly,
we're going to use it for. Now, we've got about a half a dozen bottles here done up.
Okay.
Why don't we get started on some labeling, because
Okay. Well, first
not
of all,
that tough, but I guess we're gonna
First of all, we
show
were going
folks how
to
to
put
do
our corks in. They're quite easy to put in, Mike. They're just a plastic cork,
Okay.
and they slide in quite easily, as you can see.
Okay.
Now, as we
We
mentioned,
haven't seen yet because you're going farther down the line. Now we're going to see you do it.
okay, there we go. As you can see, they slide in quite easily.
Okay.
You don't need any special tools or anything to put them in. Just put them in by hand. Shove them in by hand, like so.
Okay. I'm going to fill up a few more bottles of these.
Okay. Now that we've got the champagne corks in, we take our wires. They're just a little wire. We put them down over the top of the bottle like so, and just hold them in place. And as we mentioned before, Mike, the champagne bottle has a little lip on it that lets the wire go tightly. So all we have to do is just tighten the wire around that lip. That's all. And just a set of pliers or something, just ordinary pliers, just to twist the wire. Like so, and that's it, Mike. Here's
You just get it on there.
Yep, the wire's on them.
Nice and tight.
Yep.
And you could even twist it down to the little tiny loops, like you see down on the.
You want to be careful of twisting too much, because you'll actually break the wire. So you don't want to over twist it. Just make sure that it's good and tight around the lip.
Okay.
You can actually get a little tool for tying these wires with, Mike. It's what you do. You just put the wire on like so, hook it on, and just pull on it, and it tightens the wire. So, but pliers work well too. So,
All right.
there we go.
So we're gonna do a few of these.
All right. Now, brought along some labels here tonight also, just to let the people have a look at it and see how good you can get it looking. Look pretty professional. The labels are just just they're a pre-glued label. So all you have to do is just wet the back of the label and just a little bit of water. And
okay.
It's simple to put on.
Very easy.
Yeah.
Is there glue on that, or is it just
Yeah,
stick
it's a pre-glued label, Mike. So
okay.
just stick it on like so.
Okay. So.
Then we get our champagne foil. And these are quite easy to put on. Just put it down over the bottle like so, and
okay.
they're not like the shrink seals at all. No, you don't need to heat them or anything like that.
Right.
And there we go, Mike. You've got a bottle of champagne. All done.
That's it.
Now you want to put this in a warm place for about 3 to 4 weeks, about 3 weeks, or even 2 weeks will do. Okay, until it's until you start seeing some clearing in it. Then you move it to a cool place for about 6 months or so to let it age and mature. It's a good idea then about a week before you're ready to serve them, you get them in a cool place to let some of the taric acid crystals fall out of them, precipitate out of them, and form a layer over the sediment. And that's it. That's all it's doing.
Now, is this the type of wine that we would want to, say, enter in a wine contest? If one were happen to be coming up?
Well, we're having a wine competition. We've got a beer competition that's actually the deadline is getting very close for it. Deadline for entries is March 31st.
Okay.
The judging will be done in April. Okay. We're looking at a wine competition. Right now, we're looking at the deadline for entries sometime in September, and judging would probably be done in October.
Okay, and what? Getting back to the champagne, would this be ready in time now? Let's say we're, if it's sometime in March right now, be ready by the time ready to drink in how long? Well,
these particular champagnes here, Mike, within about 6 months, they're quite ready to drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd want to let them sit for that long?
Yeah, sure.
So
about 6
maybe
months.
You'll be in time certainly for New Year's Eve this year.
Oh, yes.
Certainly New Year's Eve for the millennium.
Yeah, exactly. No problem at all.
And it's that simple, folks, for you to make your own sparkling wine. We'll call it St. John's Champagne.
Yeah.
And you can make it at home with just a regular white wine kit. There are certain specific varieties of grape, I guess, that are... We used a Chablis. Most people would probably use like a Riesling or something like that.
Chardonnay or Riesling are two very popular ones. And Mike, I mean, when you're making it at home, I mean, you can you don't have to use a Chardonnay or a Chablis or a Riesling. You can use your own fruit wines if you want to, and make sparkling wines out of those also. Some of the fruit wines make excellent sparkling wines.
Is that right?
So I mean,
so you don't have to do it by the book. You can make whatever suits you.
Yep. The only thing we want to remind the folks at home to be very careful again. Make sure to use the proper bottles. Do not use regular wine bottles.
Right.
Make sure your wine is fully fermented before you add your priming sugar. Don't over-add. Don't add extra sugar. It's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
If you're hoping to get more carbonation or something, it's only going to, leave you with exploding bottles and that, which can be very dangerous.
Okay.
So these are some things you want to remember.
Okay. We've got just enough time. If you folks at home, if you have any questions about making your own homemade champagne, or making your own homemade beer or wine, or just about any home-brewed beverage at home, and you've got some questions, you can drop us a line right here at the Brew Club. Our address is Brew Club, care of Cable 9, 541 Kenmount Road, P.O. Box 8596, St. John's, Newfoundland. And the postal code is A1B 3P2. And you can drop us a line with any questions that you might have, and we'll certainly endeavor to answer them for you. And that's about all the time that we've got left for tonight's show. We're going to finish up bottling our champagne, and I guess we'll see you down at the waterfront during the Millennium celebrations, and we'll crack open a bottle of our own
St. John's
Sparkling Wine or St. John's Champagne. So don't forget to join us next week on the Brew Club, and we'll have something else a little different for you to make some of your own homemade beverages for Ken Ready. I'm Mike Pittman, and until next week, so long for now.
Good night.
What is that? We should get some of those labels.